Hey, I'm going to start by giving you the long and the short of it. The long of it is, it's been a long day. That started when I got up about 4:45 and went for a run. And the short of it is, I noticed that I just got a haircut and my hair was cut too short that it sticks up at the top, but we're going to roll with it. All right, so this is an important video that talks about how much income a couple can keep under the Louisiana long-term care Medicaid rules when one spouse is in the nursing home and one spouse is at home. It's a big deal because long-term care is expensive, and it can be a real financial drain when you have a married couple, one spouse is in the nursing home and one spouse is still at home, having to maintain all of those household expenses. Between the cost of the nursing home, let's call it $6,000 a month, costs of maintaining the home, another few $1,000s a month. Boy, couples can go through hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars. So it's real important to plan ahead for that, structure things the right way so you get to preserve as much of not only your assets but your income. Many people have to consume all of their assets. For Medicaid, they're called countable resources. This video is really not about protecting the assets or protecting the countable resources. That's another issue. What I want to talk about in this video is about a couple's income, because everybody messes it up. They don't really understand it. So to lay it out, I want to give you an example. Let's take an example of a married couple, and each spouse has $2,000 of monthly income. They have a total of $4,000 of monthly income, gross income. That income might come from their Social Security or their pension or any other form of monthly income that they might have. All right, and so now when you say what's each spouse's income, we have to just let you know there's a rule that says the ownership of the income is determined without regard to Louisiana's community property laws. We have what's called the name on the check rule for income purposes. So husband's getting $2,000 of income, wife getting $2,000 of income. And so for Medicaid purposes, a spouse has full ownership of the income that's in his name. Another important Medicaid rule to remember throughout this entire process is the rule that Medicaid never considers the income of the community spouse in determining eligibility for an institutionalized spouse. Let me define a couple of terms. The institutionalized spouse is the spouse who's in the nursing home. They're in an institution. That's why they're called the institutionalized spouse. The spouse who's not in the nursing home, often still living in their residence, is called the community spouse. Has nothing to do with community property, has everything to do with the fact that they're still living in the community. Okay, so with that being said, we have to take a look at the relevant provisions of the Louisiana Medicaid Eligibility Manual, and I'm referring to the patient liability determination, post-eligibility determination provisions of our Medicaid Eligibility Manual. Okay, so I already mentioned an important rule that you'll need to remember, that Medicaid never considers the income of the community spouse in determining what the institutionalized spouse's income liability is. So the community spouse always gets to keep their income. And in our example, that community spouse is getting $2,000 of income. So how much of the institutionalized spouse's income needs to be used for, I'll call it her care, and how much of that income can the community spouse keep? That's where we have to do some math. So we know that the institutionalized spouse's gross income is $2,000. And so we take that number as a starting point and we subtract what's called the long-term care personal needs allowance, $38. It's been the same for years. The rationale, Medicaid lets a Medicaid recipient keep $38 of their monthly income, lets them get a couple of haircuts or whatever other personal needs they may have. So we start with $2,000, we subtract the $38 that they get to keep, and then we have to subtract what's called the community spouse's maintenance needs allowance. And we get to that figure by taking what's called the spouse's maintenance needs standard, and for the first half of 2019, that number goes up a little bit every 6 months, but for the first half of 2019, the spouse's maintenance needs standard is $3,160.50. From that number, we deduct the community spouse's gross income, $2,000, and we get a number $1,160.50, which is determined to be what's called the Community Spouses Maintenance Needs Allowance. We take that figure, started with $2,000 institutionalized spouses income, deduct the $38 personal needs allowance, and then deduct the Community Spouses Maintenance Needs Allowance of $1,160.50. When we take 2,000 minus 38 minus 1160.50, we come to the institutionalized spouses liability, $801.50. Of the institutionalized spouses $2,000, $801.50 is used toward their nursing home care, and then the extra amount goes to the personal needs allowance and to the community spouse. Okay, so that's the long mathematical version. Let me give you the quick summary. Medicaid has determined that the community spouse can always keep all of their income. Whether their income is $500 or $2,000 or $7,000, the community spouse, the spouse who's at home, gets to keep all of their income. If the community spouse's income is less than $3,160.50, the community spouse is going to get to keep enough of the institutionalized spouse's income to get the community spouse up to $3,160.50. That's the kind of bottom line there. And look, we took a really simple example. There could be other deductions and other circumstances that could factor into this, but had to start somewhere. Okay, so here's what to remember. These are Louisiana numbers. If you or your loved one or your parents are in a nursing home in another state, you'll want to check with that state's rules regarding the community spouse's maintenance needs allowance and what's deductible and all of that. Also, I'm making the assumption that the assets of the couple are not an issue, and oftentimes that is an issue because I'm just kind of assuming they either consume their assets down to that threshold or they planned in advance and protected those using some legal strategies that they can use. So, bottom line, if the community spouse, the spouse who's at home, if their income is less than the spouse's maintenance needs standard of $3,160.50, then the community spouse can keep enough of the institutionalized spouse's income to get the community spouse up to that $3,160.50 number. Hope that helps. I'm hoping what I'm doing here is educating you somewhat and really motivating you to realize how drastic it can be and how draining it can be on families when you don't plan ahead for this stuff, and also to make and keep you aware that by planning ahead you can really protect assets and income. But you've got to get help. You got to do it right the first time. You've got to, take advantage of the rules that our government has put forth to enable people to protect what they have as long as they follow the rules. So, hope that helps. I'm Paul Rabelais. Have a great day.